We've even had administration that also works a full load, the 40 hours that week, and then also too have to take a load on the weekends as far as covering the morning shift, or even an opening just for the renters to get set up. So that's my kind of just on that. As far as needing some type of relief, like I said, and even to now, say now into the end of the year, I have only 3 Saturdays that are available. I'm fixing to get ready to lose one part-time person whose last day is Friday. So that also puts us in a strain to where somebody's going to have to cover it. Which I know that we've worked with Public Works before, and that also is an option for those guys to help us out too, with events and setting up and things like that. So the November and Thanksgiving weekends, those usually are not rented anyway, so technically I only have one day to the end of the year, or one Saturday to the end of the year. But I mean, prepping for our annual open house, so then that's going to also bring in more people that are wanting to get on the books for the following year. So we're kind of strained right now as far as events, and trying to make sure that we are staying operational, to make sure that we're not, dropping the ball anywhere. It's a lot, and people always think that it's just, planning the event, but you have the layouts, the setups, the breakdowns, and all those different things in between, knowing, how many tables and chairs need to be put out and things like that. So it's not just the day-to-day, things, plus planning for city-sponsored events. So we do it all. We run our own errands. We do it all. So it's a lot. It's a lot right now.
Ms. Broussard, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
I see that you requested part-time workers. So with the part-time workers, you don't have any type of benefits. Is that correct?
No.
So why are you not asking for full-time?
Part-time does allow us to save as far as no benefits, and it puts 2 more people on the ground working.
So I would think it would be hard to keep someone even with the part-time.
It is. I'm on my 6th person right now.
And if they find something that's providing benefits, they might just leave and go to another area. And I think I read somewhere that you said there was no weekends off.
We have far and few and in between that are my event workers have weekends off. Yes. Okay. They're working every weekend, and it's a split shift. And it's rotated to where one either opens and the other closes, and then vice versa for the following week. The one will close and then the other will open.
Okay. And just to give a note to this, myself, I have witnessed the workload that has been there at that Civic Center when they're tearing down the tables and putting up the tables, and it's a really it's a hard job.
It's very physical too.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is hard for them. Would it not benefit you more to have full-time workers?
I feel like they would stay. I feel like we would probably get a better quality of person that would, apply for the job. We are busy. It's busier on the weekends. Now, some days we don't have anything going on, but it does allow for me to offset the schedule. It just allows for us because, like I said, my event workers do not have Saturdays off. They were working every Saturday, and that's what a person, when they sign up for the job, that's pretty much what we have to tell them, that there's no Saturdays off. You will work either a morning shift or an afternoon shift.
And another note to that, I'd just like to say that we are growing in a lot of areas. So this is an area that we want to put on more events, but in order to do this, we do have to have the accommodations.
And we're trying to do smaller engaging events to have more activity going on. Like I mentioned, we're still having food truck fusion going on. We're going to extend that through November. So we will be having that through November. That takes setup and breakdown. Thankfully, we're downtown, so Public Works helps with that, setting up and getting them equipment there. We are doing CPR classes, offering, smaller engaging events, should I say, that benefit the community. So we are working on that. We'll have a senior health fair that's coming up. That'll take place in October. So we're doing a lot more.
Fall festival coming up.
Fall festival coming up, Treat Street, all those October events.
I've got several questions. Number one, these people that want to use our civic center, I'm talking about the Chamber of Commerce, the school, leadership, all these people.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible, they want it for a reduced rate, is it possible for them to provide some of the labor for setting up? How much training would it take to say, okay, Chamber of Commerce, you want to use it? Is it possible they could donate 3 people labor to do that setup and take down? Have you considered it?
They can, and we do offer for them to do their own setups and breakdowns sometimes. I know that as far as the chamber goes, they have the Heaven's Army ladies that come in and do their setups at times. And pretty much when they're available. It's all scheduling too with doing the events.
So if you hired a full-time person, what would they do? Most of your activities on the weekends, so I see it.
Yes, sir. And then, like I said, we do have events that, take place during the week. Just last week, or week before last, we had the DA who was there doing and training. That required setup. We had Cleveland ISD who called last week. And, that required a setup. Thankfully, they did their own breakdown, but we did have to set that up because it was the last minute. They called us the day before.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, if you had a full-time person, would it be busy all the time, the person?
Yes, sir. They would be busy, and like I said, there are days that are not as busy, but again, most of the time they would be.
What are they doing on a day that you don't have an event going
They're pretty much doing the daily routine as far as deep cleaning and making sure they're getting ready for the next events. They're checking log cabin. Log cabin has to be done. They're doing maintenance on some of our machines during that time when it's a downtime, making sure that they empty out the ice machines. Ice machines have to be done, checking projector. Those things are kind of our routine things that have to be done. Mopping the floors, stripping the floors, all of that
on?
stuff.
So back to the question, what is better, a part-time person or a full-time person?
Part-time for me is going to give us more hands, and not just part-time, but it's also going to help as far as I'm doing 2 part-time, so it's going to be a part-time event worker and a part-time event coordinator. And that person's going to help as far as in the office.
My next question is, if we have a freeze that's coming in November, is it going to be protected from keep from happening what happened last year?
I would hope so, but from what I understand, I don't think the water was cut off. And that's what happened with our freeze.
That's part of the problem, but also, we talked about getting a generator there.
Oh,
Can we put a generator there? We've been talking about it.
I didn't know anything about a generator.
Well, in time of flooding,
Yes, sir.
and what we used the civic center, we could use it for people to gather, stay out of the weather. Those are out of their homes. But yet you can't in the wintertime if you don't have certain facilities.
Yes, sir.
And so there again, if you lose power, you can't use that whole civic center for what that intent.
Yes.
So I think one of the things we are talking about is a generator for the civic center. Next thing, you haven't asked or anything about the log cabin. Were you going to?
As far as the log cabin, I know Leslie and I have already discussed that there are funding there for the log cabin. So as far as the log cabin goes, we are working on those renovations. I have 2 quotes for the floor, and I know Mr. Wheeler is going to be getting us another quote. I did call Lowe's, which we have a city account with Lowe's in Kingwood. They charge a $35 service fee to come out, but they can also give us another quote if another quote if we need another quote. But the renovations at Stansel are being looked at and hopefully will be taken care of as far as the flooring and maybe some updated fixtures and things like that.
Of course, somebody doing the floor, we basically be rented on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So from Monday to Thursday, is that?
We would have to look at our schedule and block out that time frame. If there is something, say, I know that NTC sometimes uses us when they can't use their facility, and we would just move them over to a half a conference room, just so that we can accommodate our renters.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
I have a clarifying question. You gave the revenue list. Is this fiscal year or calendar year?
That is
2016.
calendar year.
Okay, so in 2022, you have 469 events. Is that to date or is that through December?
Through the calendar, yes, that is the entire calendar. through
Okay, so
December.
you're showing an increase of 34 events, correct?
Yes,
Okay, just wanted to check on that. And then your statement on part-time versus full-time. Part-time, you're having employees up to 32 hours?
we've been doing up to 29 hours.
29, okay.
Is that
So together you got 58.
Correct. Thanks.
And answering my question, does the chamber still do their own breakdown, or have they put that back to y'all?
It depends, they use Heaven's Army, the ladies from Heaven's Army, but it does depend on their schedule. So if they do not use Heaven's Army and we do their setup and or their breakdown, we do charge them.
That's fair.
Ms. Broussard, so you do adjust, I think I read somewhere as far as if they did do the own breakdown, do you sort of adjust the fee or something if they do their own breakdown? Or do you charge extra?
Yes, they get charged for it. If we do a setup fee, it's $125 for the setup fee. If we do their breakdown and cleanup, it's $350.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. Broussard? I do think this is something that, even if you might want one full-time and one part-time, I just see that by being part-time, it just sort of keep this position, flip-flopping.
It's kind of a revolving door, and like I said, I mean, I am on my sixth part-time person. I mean, we roll with it and work with it for as long as we have them, but we're definitely just, I'll be filling actually two positions, because like I said, the part-time that we have now is leaving on Friday, so.
Okay. This is to the finance. I see that the event workers, two for like 45,000. Is that the budget amount that was put in the
Yeah,
plan
because-
for that?
Yes, because we're not paying benefits for the part-timers.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. What salary do we give the people in our office here, like, we got an opening for HR? What kind of range salary is that?
Well, you asked
40 to 45.
It's 40
Haven't we
to 40
posted it?
It's 40 to 45, yes.
And then we're gonna have a part-time person making just as much money?
No, that's for two.
No,
That's
this
for
is
two.
22.80 more.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I see 2 times 45, so okay, sorry.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Ms. Broussard. We are moving to our next
Thank you.
item. What department?
Next, we have James with Blue Iron to talk about IT.
Is that microphone on?
I mean, I'm talking close enough.
Oh,
There we go.
I'm sorry.
So the bulk of that is gonna be firewall replacements. That's the quote you have in front of you. This is a budgetary quote. Once we get into the year, we'll probably have to re-quote that just because prices change. What that's gonna do is the equipment we have at the police department today, fire department, and the library as far as network security is end of life and is outdated. That becomes a major problem for the police department dealing with sieges. They're mandated to make sure that we update that equipment on a regular basis. So this is something we talked about in years past. It's never came through the budget, so we're submitting it again this year to try to push that through. So line item 1, if you want to go through it by line item, is the primary unit for the police department, which all the internet for City Hall, Civic Center, Public Works, and the police department go out that device. We also accounted for a failover unit in line item 2, and then the licensing in line item 3 that allows that to be a failover. And so if we have a piece of equipment fail, it'll automatically fail over to the secondary piece of equipment with no interaction. So then the city's not down on internet. I also included Firewall VPN licenses. This will allow for city workers to, if we had to go remote for any reason, to be able to remote back into the city network from, say, home on their laptops, to access the servers and different things that they need on the network. Now that is only for 25 users. That means that 25 people can be connected at one time. If somebody were to drop off, then another person could jump on there. Generally, we wouldn't use that many at any given time. Line item 5 is 2 units. That's the unit for the fire department and the unit for the library. It's a smaller unit than what we're using for the rest of the city, but it has the same features and capabilities. Line item 6 is just rack mounting equipment to rack that, and then the labor to configure it. So that's half of the 15,000. The other half of the 15,000 will be for network switches, which I don't have that documented properly right now. I'm having trouble sourcing it with the amount of budget that's there. To do it the right way, we need about 20,000 additional to that number to account for the switches between here and the police department to connect all the fiber together. So I'm looking for other options with that to try to bring that cost down.
So this 15 will allow you to do what needs to be done?
It'll allow me to do what you have in your hand as far as what I've went over so far.
Right.
The switches with the modules that we need run about 10,000 a piece. The switches themselves are about 8,000, and then the module is another 2,000 that plugs into it that allows us to connect the fiber. So I'm going to be looking for alternatives that may be coming in cheaper. That's using Cisco equipment. Cisco tends to be more expensive, and it's expensive for a reason, but I'm going to try to source an alternate.
But we're gonna have to have something to make the connection, right?
Yes, ma'am. The equipment we have in there now, we came on board in 2009. That equipment is the same equipment that's been in there since 2009 as far as the fiber connections. So it's lived its life and then some.
We're lucky it's lasted this long, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am. And if we have a problem, we can bring up equipment and put in a temporary fix. But ultimately, we need to replace it.
And at the police department, are we still operating out of that same little room where everything's in there?
Yes, ma'am. We have the old jail cell that's set up as a server room, and then we have the closet right inside booking that all the network equipment goes through. So there's kind of 2 places there,
Right.
2 rooms.
At one point, I know there was a problem there because the air conditioning wasn't.
I
What
think that's been
needed to be-
remedied. I think we have a dedicated unit in there now.
Okay, good,
So that's been keeping rolling.
great. All right, thank you.
I just need a little clarification. Up on the board, you got 15,000. Down here, we see about half that 7,700. Then you mentioned something else, coming on 10,000.
Yes, sir. That's
So we're talking about 17,000 or 15,000?
So you have the 7,000 quote in your hand, that's part of it that I know for sure that that's what we're gonna go with, the equipment. We can go buy this today and use half of that 15,000. The other half, I'm trying to find equipment that fits into that budget, because that budget's actually a little short. I would need $20,000 just by itself to get the switches that I was trying to source originally. So the 15,000 is not gonna quite cover it.
So we're in a budget period.
Yes,
So are you saying you should make that maybe 17,000?
Or 20.
He's saying
No.
that it's
I'm just
I would need,
27,000
27,000 is what we need. Okay, then that's what we
So
should.
explain 27,000.
yes, sir.
This 7,
And
you
this
said
is
it's
the
about
20.
10. But now,
Oh, there's
how do we get to 25?
There's two units that are about 10,000 apiece. So there's two switches. There's a switch for City Hall and there's a switch for PD. Both of those total around $10,000.
Okay.
And so I didn't have them actually quoted out because I was trying to stick under the 15,000 number.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
I have one. How is that recurring?
That's a one-time fee.
So that would be not recurring then?
It's non-recurring.
Okay.
There is,
Well, I
so
put,
Or is it?
sorry, I put reoccurring because every year we need a budget for IT reoccurring
Okay,
stuff
for
because
software.
we need to update software. That's
Oh.
why I did that.
So this equipment here, I quoted it with 2-year licensing. It's the same price for 1 year, so we might as well go with 2. Every 2 years, this licensing would need to be renewed on the firewalls. But that's normal maintenance. At that time, we would just work on the budget at that point to make sure that was covered.
Leslie, can I ask you a question? Recently, we had, I think it was the museum that came in, and I'm only mentioning this because they mentioned that their computers were outdated. So, who would, if we basically got financing for them, who would install this? Would that be?
We would be happy to help with that.
I mean, the historical museum is part of the city.
Because they have, I mean, they haven't had any connection in a while, and it's part of the city.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure.
this is why I also put it in the unfunded, do the 30,000 for the historical museum.
Now, would they be standalone site, or would we be tying them back into the city resources as well? Because so far, they haven't been connected with the city up until this point, as far as an IT perspective.
We own the building.
We own the building, so why wouldn't we supply them with computers?
I think
I mean, I'm not sure, Ms. Merlin, why it hasn't been done, but I don't see why it wouldn't.
Is the museum part of the city, or is it a 501c3?
Yes.
It's part of
The
Yes,
museum,
It's not.
the city just owns the
The
building.
building belongs.
The building is owned, not part of the city.
Oh, okay.
Museum
That
is
is
not.
Okay.
But
We don't have
we
the
help them when
responsibility
we
to
can.
help them.
Yeah, we don't have the.
No, but we try.
Thanks for that clarification.
But we
Yes.
do have the responsibility to maintain the building.
Yes.
Yes.
But not,
We do the fire alarms, all that kind of stuff that are associated with the building,
right.
Okay.
but not in infrastructure, water, sewer, all that kind of stuff. But anything with the organization itself is on there.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, do we have any other questions for Mr. Johnson?
Would they be able to help with, I know Jennifer mentioned the cemetery software. Would they be able to help with that too?
Yes.
Well, I think the company kind of sets up the software. That's what the lump sum at the beginning is. The company will set up the software, and then IT will come in whenever we need to, if we need to integrate it on our computers or something like that. It's mostly in the cloud, so IT probably wouldn't have to do too much, but, I can always reach out to IT if we need to help them get that integrated.
In cases like that, we provide vendor management, we talk IT between the company and you, so that we make sure you get what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, any other questions? No comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next department, Development Services.
Yes.
Next department is Development Services, and we have Lindsay Carr and Ida that is gonna talk about their items today.
Development Services is asking for a part-time position to help with the permitting process. We have the position open for the chief building official, but we need more help. We're building roughly a house a day with commercial on top of it, plus we're only 3 of us and a part-time person working right now on water and development services. So every house you build, you have a new water account that opens, so we're doing both jobs currently. So Leslie is part-time, right? You budgeted for part-time, correct? Yeah.
How much is that budget?
40.
That's part-time.
Yes, without benefits. Right now, how it's set up is water and permits are together. Very long time, it was separate. Water and permits were separate, and then, 2 years ago, previous management merged them together, which it's not good because the ladies are overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, and they can't keep up. Like, it's constant, and this will tell you, like, permits and waters, they're constantly picking up phones, answering permit questions, water questions. Like, they don't have time to focus in one department and focus 100%. They're not giving their 100%, they're giving less because they have too many things going on at once. You're paying a person to do 2 jobs for 1 salary, and we would like to separate the departments.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, let's talk about it a minute. Right now, this particular position, building official is not there, so we're outsourcing it, right?
Yes,
And how much are we at this point right now, are we spending for this year for that particular outsourcing?
Roughly 347,000.
more now, it's like
Yeah.
400,000.
A month ago, I think we were at 347,000.
And that's what, one man, one person?
No,
Is
it's,
that one person checking drawings?
no. You've got Mike Kirkwood, who also has 3 inspectors that he employs. That does more than half of the city, from 59 this way. And then you have Safe Belt, who's doing Pinewood Trails. So you have 2 companies with roughly 4 to 5 inspectors on the ground. So even when you hire,
That's where we're getting close to 400,000.
so even when you hire that building official,
Well, that's what I'm getting at, you hire a building official, he's one person.
correct.
And
Mr. Darrell, I was gonna say the same thing, I'm gonna agree with you on that, because if we don't have Mr. Kirkwood and we have a building official,
well, I just happened to be given a tour, walked in the office there, and I saw a set of drawings from the school. It's this thick.
the north side was twice that. And that takes,
We pay them by the paper, the pound, or the job?
I don't know, but I mean, that position in this, they are getting covered up over there, I can tell you.
Well, I can see it, that's what I said. It's almost a person's full-time job, sit at that desk and look at drawings. And
Ms. Lynch and I had that discussion this morning about how,
if we're gonna build a budget, let's be realistic about it.
At one time, they had a building official and I believe it was an inspector with one development services coordinator.
Yep.
That was before we had 2 subdivisions
And
come.
I was gonna say, that was before the growth.
Yes.
That just came in, and then not just subdivision we had, but just like today, I mean, when we have more and more people coming into more and more developments, and it's just gonna keep compiling.
So you heard what I said, let's be realistic about it.
Yeah.
If we do a budget,
I
let's be
agree.
realistic about it.
Yes, sir.
I agree. But we could separate those departments again, is that correct?
We would have to staff it first, because if you pulled it apart right now, they would have to stay in water, and that would leave just me for development
And then
services.
the part-timer, so we really need to stop, like, we should have left it, permits being
Right.
permits and water being water, and then we
I agree.
gradually would have added people to
Mhm.
development services. Now we're having to build a whole department from the ground up, and it's gonna take time, but it needs to be separated. The ladies are
Oh, yeah.
very overwhelmed.
Well, you can't do both. There's
Yeah,
one
it
job's plenty by itself. But wouldn't a full-time position be better than a part-time?
Yes, full-time would be better.
That's what we need to ask for then, I
So
think.
if you had a full-time building inspector and you had an assistant for him, would 2 people do the job? Full-time?
You would have to make sure they both were the same qualifications at that point. Because you have a chief building official, basically you have your plan review license, and then electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, and then residential and commercial. So certifications are important.
Many cities have a city engineer, which is covered what you just said. An engineer could. You're gonna pay more for an engineer, but then an assistant could be more hands-on field inspection.
That was, I think, before, that's what it was a building official was supposed to be in there that had all of those qualifications. And then just an inspector to do like your basic residential and electrical and plumbing.
Sure. Yeah. We need to get back to that,
Do we have any other questions?
which is easier said than done, of course.
So the one part-time permit tech makes 40,000, just one,
Just one of those.
and no benefits.
No benefits.
Why no benefits? I'm just asking.
Well, because it's part-time. If we wanna offer benefits, it would be more. But,
She's basically trying to rebuild the department.
yeah, I'm trying to rebuild the department, so I'm trying to ask for things, and y'all are the ones who decide, okay, well now Ms. Carolyn said, let's look at a full-time, so then I can go back and say, okay, well, this is the numbers for full-time. But I wanted y'all to decide on
Right.
what y'all want.
Yeah, yeah. Full-time would be more beneficial in my opinion, and you could get, more people to apply, I'm sure, and probably more qualified
Yes,
people to apply. And that's where you are, that's what you need now.
Yes.
When we had Jeremy, what was he?
He was called the Director of Development Services because he was not a chief building official. He could not inspect everything. We used Mike Kirkwood back then also, because he was not fully licensed. And I think they gave him like 2 years to get all his licensing.
Yeah. We can also go that route and give,
Right.
Well, we do see that the growth is pushing, many of the departments, just like we were mentioning, the civic center as well, the part-time versus the full-time. It's really, with the economy going like it is, or the gas going up and all different things going on, there's a demand. People need this for their household. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
and
work for nothing.
I agree, and not only that, but they need to support families, so part-time doesn't really.
Yes.
No, you can't do it with part-time.
So we just have to
It's up to them.
look into our budget and see what we can move around and
And
accommodate
maybe come back
each department that goes.
full-time for that.
Any other questions?
Wait, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Your turn?
Yeah.
What about this last one?
The code enforcement I was going to talk on.
Thank you, Lindsay.
How about district funds for general thing?
That comes from Ida with
I
code enforcement.
Okay. have building inspector.
Good afternoon. I am requesting, an additional monies in postage, 2,000. I currently use, well, the postage amount keeps going up as well, seems like every 6 months. And I send out over 100 letters within a year's time. And they'll all go certified mail. So that's like, right now it's $7.82 a letter. No?
I
Oh,
already added that.
oh, you did, okay, sorry. The second thing,
Oh,
and the demo, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm requesting an additional 15,000. We recently just had one done for under 7,500 for one house. So I plan to do 2 to 3, hopefully in a year's time. So our current budget is currently 30,000, but that's for cleanups and demos and pretty much everything else code enforcement needs.
Besides, when you say cleanup, what is cleanup?
Cutting the weeds on properties that aren't maintained. We send them the letters, they don't respond, they don't do it, so the city has to go out there and do it, and then we pay the contractors.
Okay, so we're spending $30,000 to mow lots,
Yes, sir.
and you're requesting $15,000 so you can take down 2 houses, basically, a year.
Yes.
So how many houses are you taking down now a year? You using the $30,000 to do that as well?
No, sir. See, I've already used all of the funds that were in there, and it's two months before the end of the budget year. So for the next
Didn't
2
this
months.
last house, did the funds from that come from EDC?
Yes, sir, that came from EDC, because we were out of funds.
Bring that all out, so we
Yes, sir.
know what we're talking about.
So the money from EDC, how much was that for?
Well, they had, what, 18
They had
in your
18.
budget?
18,000, and that was, 78.
About half of it.
Yeah, yes, sir. But, I'm gonna comment, and this is, Ms. Ida's been bringing this into me. Like she said, she got a budget of $30,000, and she's spent around 25,000, 26,000 per se a day. And right now it's been mowing lots, and we had a discussion about that. Kind of back off that, because when you take $30,000 now, and I asked her, I said, too, on the funds, if we spend this fund, we send out letters, and these people don't respond, then the city mows it. Then we put liens on this property that's set out there. So we put $25,000 in liens, but how long is that money out there? And I asked her one question, and she responded this. How much money, I said, since I've been in this role in the past year, how much money, since she's been here about a year doing this, how much has been brought back of that money? About $500. So how long does this money was set out there to keep mowing these lots? And I just want to bring that to y'all's attention. I mean, and dude, I'd like to see more demo, and we got a lot of things that need to be done. So I want y'all to think about it.
But how do we get the money back, other than sending the letters and the people know, of course, that they owe it? But
I think at one point in time we discussed fines, so we never did get to find them, or?
That was gonna
With
come.
assessing a fine?
That
Well,
was,
that brings up another point. When you get the volume involved, these costs keep going up. Now, how many times in the last 4 or 5 years we had people come and buy an empty lot? They offer anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. Well, we're talking almost 8,000 demo. You get some legal involved, and we're not getting the money back. And I don't know if the laws can be stiff enough to do it. And either you pay your taxes, and if you get a fine for cleaning the weeds and clean up. If you don't do it, a certain amount of time, years, that put on the auction block. And I don't know if that was, a lot of these people don't live here now, and I think they don't care. They just don't live here, they don't see it. Their relatives have left it to them, and I think that's where our problem is.
So the question was just asked by Ms. McWaters, how do we get this money back? So, is there an answer to that? How
knowing it back. I mean, we'd have to start collections, start calling these people, trying to call them. They don't receive the letters, I'm sure they're not gonna receive our phone calls. So, that's another question I have for legal, how do we go about getting these funds back?
So we need to find some kind of process.
But now, some of them we do get the money back. I don't guess we have it this year, but I know the house over there by us, right down by the park.
Dr. Rick Kelly, yes,
Yeah,
that money.
I think we did get
That person,
that back.
Yeah, he
For
agreed
that
on
one,
that.
and that was a,
Is there a time limit on that? Like, I mean, we mow it and we send them a letter and they notify, is there,
No, sir.
I mean, like, we wait 90 days, we gotta wait 2 years? What's,
I mean, once we perform the services and I bill them, then I have to give them 30 days to try to pay it. And then if nothing's done within that 30 days, then I can assess a lien on the property. And then that just sits there
and then
until
as
the
far as
property's
we
sold.
go?
yeah, 'cause they don't care about that either.
And I want to comment to one we just demoed. That was cleaned up on that property 3 times. I don't remember what the dollar, not counting just the demo, but that property was cleaned up 3 different times. So you can take those dollars and add to that 7,800.
But we have to do that part because, you know, the neighbors and the business next
Right.
door almost demanded that, and I don't blame them for that.
I
So
understand.
that was our, you know, that we kind of get into a catch-22
That one
with
had
that.
just been that house on, but I'm gonna say that one, now we're.
Yeah.
And it is hard to go after them
Mhm.
because these property owners are either deceased or they moved away and either the children, grandchildren are here, but they don't care to take care of it either or the bills.
That's right.
So I have another question. So are you asking, the full amount to be paid in 30 days, or do you do it in increments, or?
Depending on the amount. Some bills are $300, some bills are $900. On higher bills, I work with them, I'll give them like 6 months to pay it off. If not, I mean, some will say, I'll just pay it right now, and they pay the whole thing. It just depends on what the price is.
What's the average cost for somebody to go in and do a typical lot? 60 feet, 100 feet? What's the typical cost to mow it, clean it up?
I would say about 200 to 200, depending on how high it is too.
A lot of bookkeeping involved.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
That's a shame.
I will say that when I first got here, I mean, these properties were jungles, the weeds were very high.
Right.
So that's the reason too, we ran out of money within the first years, because we were having to pay a lot to get these done.
And you started taking care of it, so that, and we appreciate that. You can certainly tell the difference, but there's so much more to do. I understand that.
We have some city properties, you know, yards, ditches and stuff that are grown high. It's hard to tell
Right.
in somebody else that you need to mow yours if we don't maintain ours.
Mhm.
And I think that almost everybody who gets a citation like this, that's the first thing they say is, why am I having to do it? And I see the city's not doing it. And believe me, they are out there.
Yeah.
You can't keep mowing the same yard over and over. I don't think that's, to mow it all the time. I think once is fine, but
Right.
to upkeep it,
Yeah, I agree
I
with that.
think we need citations or something
Yeah.
more aggressive that she can find out with legal and see what we can
Right.
do to collect our money. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
we don't
money that
need
we're
to,
not collecting.
exactly, we don't need to maintain it on a regular basis, for sure.
Well, I'd like to talk to that lawyer. I feel like we're spinning our wheels and wasting our money and our time. So when that lawyer gets back, I'd like to speak with her, put this on the agenda, and get her to answer this. Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, any other questions?
Is she gonna?
Thank you, Ms. Ida.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move to our next item, which is, fire department.
I think we ought to go back to volunteers.
Next, we have the
It wasn't on that one.
We had both good luck getting it.
What you gonna do with that new fire station? Got to pay for it. Nice building.
I apologize for my boots being dirty, that's where I just came from, pouring concrete tomorrow. 2 o'clock in the morning, anybody wants to show up.
Oh,
We'll be there.
sounds
Okay.
good.
Well, that'll bring more water line.
Okay, so the first item that she has up there for us is that I requested for 3 full-time firefighters to be added to the personnel that we have now. We currently have 9 total, which is, we have 3 shifts, so that's 3 persons a shift. We do have a couple of the captains that are listed as full-time. They don't work the full shift calendar because they're still part-time in Houston, or they're still full-time in Houston. So, but they work their extra time here. But we're still not meeting the minimum number of personnel that we need, first of all, to run the number of calls that we have, period. We just had a reevaluation by ISO. I sent that report out. We were able to maintain the 3. The number 1 item, as it has been the last 2 reports we've gotten, is we're too short on personnel. We can't respond the trucks that we need to the calls that we have, and we don't have the number of personnel on the trucks that we need to have per unit. So this is just an effort to start filling in some of those gaps slowly. We are seeing the growth, as all of y'all have stated so far today in this meeting. Every subdivision is filling up quickly, and like we talked about, we had another meeting today for the start of another one here in the near future. Another 135 more homes or something like that inside the city limits. So it's not going to slow down anytime soon. Our call volume, 20 plus years ago when I started here, we made 50 calls a month. We make nearly 250 calls a month now. There are days where I'm not in the office. It's because I'm still riding a truck, making calls by myself. We just don't have the personnel that we need. We still have the SAFER grant for a little bit more time that's paying for those 9 personnel. We are going to have to take that on. We agreed to, that's when we put in for the grant. We agreed to take on those personnel when the grant money expires. But this is to start supplementing those personnel when we're supposed to have, so large apparatus like the pumper, the ladder truck we're getting, are supposed to have 4 people on it. We're riding with 3 right now. So these 3 people, 1 per shift, would give us those 4 people a day for that first out truck. We do still have some part-time. We still do have less than a handful of volunteers left that ride shifts with us and come up and work when they can, when they're available. But those are getting fewer and far between, so.
I'd like to ask you about the SAFER grant.
Okay.
That was, what, 2 years ago?
We're a year and a half, almost 2 years into it.
We got to start their salaries are paid for, and we pick it up when, the 3rd year or 4th?
So this particular one, because of COVID, they did a special funding for this one. This one's being covered at 100%. When we applied for the grant, it was a 70-30. So pretty soon now, we should be picking up the rest of it. But since they're covering the whole thing, we won't pick up until the 4th year.
Okay, good. Now that's 9, I thought it was 9 firemen.
It is 9 firemen, 3 shifts.
And you now have how many full-time? 9?
9.
We had some before we got this SAFER grant.
Well, we have myself on full-time, and 2 of the captains are technically full-time because they do receive some benefits. They just don't work the full calendar shift because they're working other jobs.
So before that, it was all the volunteers?
It was 100%, well, I say 100%. It was a few volunteers, a few more than what we have now, not very many. It was 100% part-time. We didn't have full-time. That's why we went out for the SAFER grant.
Right, I'm hearing that.
Right.
We've done that. Now, the fire stations I visited before we got the new one was they were running
Yes.
4 people
Correct.
per shift.
Yep.
Now, when you get to your fire station, aren't you going to have 4 in each one?
Yes, sir, and that's why I was getting these, so we can get all the positions filled now. So that hopefully I'll come back before council when this one's getting close, where it's time to apply for the SAFER grant again, to see if the council who is seated at that time will allow me to apply for another 9.
So if the new fire station is supposed to be finished in January. February.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then you got 2 fire stations, you run in 4 men per shift, 3 shifts. That's 12 and 12.
Yes.
So you're going to need 24 people.
Correct.
Okay.
if a tone drops right now, per ISO, if a tone drops right now, and they say that we have a structure fire in the city of Cleveland, I'm supposed to respond 2 pumpers, a ladder truck, and command. 14 people. Right now. I have 3.
That's not safe.
So we rely heavily on East Montgomery County, which is the Splendora and McCaney area. They're the next closest paid department that we have access to assist with us, or North Montgomery County, which is the Willis area, depending on what they are. But we still call for Plum Grove, Tarkington, Bear Creek volunteer departments. If they have any personnel to come help out, then they will too.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't have personnel. Sometimes we're covering calls in their territory because they don't have it.
Bless your heart.
You've been having volunteers? I mean, have you been having?
People apply to be volunteers. We average about 2 or 3 a year, and some of them will stick around for a couple of months, and then if they get another job, then they stop showing up. So, but the numbers for, been some talk about part-time and full-time position, whatever. With the full-time, the number that's there is the 3 personnel, their pay, the full benefits package, everything all combined together.
Yeah, and that's how it should be for them, yeah.
What
Everybody,
kind
if we could afford it.
what kind of equipment does the fireman himself, if he's full-time, what does he have to supply?
What does he have to supply? Or what do we have to supply him?
Well, either way, you explain it either way.
So we supply them with their uniforms, the bunker gear they wear to fight fire, the air packs that are on the trucks, all the equipment that are on the trucks, the hoses, nozzles, we supply everything.
Okay, that's what I want to know, because I know police department, you have to do your own uniforms, don't you? Chief? Yes. Supervisor? Okay.
Any other questions about personnel? I'm sorry, man. What do you have next? Computers and mounts. So the computers, we're switching, and we're about to go live with it. We've switched programs from the program that we've been writing reports with, that we track our costs with, that we track our equipment with, what have you. It's called Firehouse. It's at the end of its life, and we're switching to ESO. ESO is the closest to Firehouse that we could find. It's a cloud-based program. IT's been helping us with it. This quote is from IT about getting the computers that we need to put in the trucks themselves. Because with it being cloud-based versus the Firehouse program that we have now, they have to write it down on a piece of paper, take all the information back to the station, and do reports. Unfortunately, when you go from one call to the next, end up with little notes here and there scribbled, and stuff gets confused and takes a little while. And so this program will actually have computers on scene to be able to capture the information, do the reports as much as they can while they're there. So if they do get called to something else, then that information's already started and what have you. We're working right now getting it integrated with the CAD system at dispatch. Once we get that up, we can start using the program. But at this point, they're still going to have to wait until they go back to the station to do the reports, unless we can get these computers and put them on the trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, you need those for sure.
Okay, the training tower, I'm sorry, no other questions? Okay. Training tower. All right, I'm in a different order than what y'all have, but I got it. So the training tower is something that I've asked for 6 or 7 years now. Training tower is something that we would get ISO points for. The tower that we're looking at is not a site-built building. It's basically industrial scaffolding, I guess is the best way that I can describe it. But it's a system that was evaluated by ISO. They've accepted it. It's a 3-story training tower. We can rappel off of it. We can ladder it. It has a sprinkler riser system built into it for us to practice on. All that kind of stuff. Build it out at the fire field that we have out there by the east water plant. Since So we have the room out there for the training. This is one of those items, when I first asked for it, it was $45,000. It's now at least $65,000. And by the time we actually go out for, if we go for it, it may have gone up again since then. So, but that's something that we can use, law enforcement can use, other departments in the area can use, which is no different than what we have out at the fire field right now. We have other departments that come in and burn in our burn building and stuff like that we have out there. Any questions?
No questions.
We got ticks next. Okay, so for the ticks, sorry, thermal imaging camera tick, the cameras that we have now are the same cameras that we've had for about 12 years. Those cameras can no longer be updated. We've had them updated 3 times. Sent one in literally about 2 months ago because we were at a fire, walked in, the whole screen whited out, and couldn't get it to reactivate. Sent it in and he said, nope, it's done. So we're getting to the point where they're not making parts for these anymore. They can't be updated. The program within the camera can't be updated anymore. When they're done, they're done. And we use the ticks. The ticks are the thermal imaging cameras, so when we go into a burning building, obviously you see where the fire is, but it also helps you locate. Smoke's usually the floor. You can't see your hand in front of your face. But if there's somebody laying over here and we're walking this way, and you look with the camera, you can see them laying there. You can get that person out faster. Because if you're just looking around, you don't see them there until you stumble upon them.
Is that 32 for one camera?
2. We have 2 cameras currently that would replace both of them. Like I said, one is out of service at this time, but since that one can't be replaced, we're worried the other one obviously will not be able to be replaced either. So instead of just asking for one, if one's out, they're probably both going to go out soon. I asked for 2 to replace the 2 that we have. Okay. SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus. These are the air packs, the backpacks that we wear to breathe air when you go inside of a building that's on fire. When that smokes to the floor, there's no oxygen to breathe. So we bring it in with us. A number of the packs that we currently have, just like everything else, is getting to their shelf life. They're done. The electronics on the inside of them, all that, they're not producing parts for those anymore. We're maintaining as many as we can, and we're basically using those for pick apart. So if one main item breaks, we hold on to the rest of it. So if something else breaks on another one, we can strip it off of that one. But we're even running out of parts that we maintain. So we're getting to the point where we have to buy more air packs, or we're going to not have enough per truck. So for the ladder truck, we did have some money built into that. So we are buying ones with the ladder truck, but those are the ones for that truck. I'm talking about the ones that we currently have on the trucks we have. We don't have enough air packs now. So we need to start replacing some of those.
32,000 value, how many?
3. Yes.
Okay, additional radios.
And I apologize, I understand this is becoming I'm sounding like a broken record up here, but our handheld radios are getting to the end of their shelf life, and they can no longer be repaired or reprogrammed. The boards that are in them just cannot be updated anymore, and we're just not being able to keep up with the radios that we have. While they are built for firefighting, they can only be submerged in water and heated over 700 degrees so many times before they can no longer be fixed. And we're getting low on every person that goes into a building is supposed to have their own radio. We don't have that now. So having these 3 radios kind of going in correlation with asking for the 3 people, get the 3 radios so that we have radios for everybody as they're coming in.
Is that replacing plus 3?
This, no, we're not replacing any, they just,
This
just addition, right?
I'll replace the mower.
All right. So the mower that we had was a mower,
It can't be repaired.
no, it can't be repaired. And I even took it down before it changed from being Gates. It's one of the old snapper type mowers. And I took it to Gates, and as soon as I drove up, he's like, I told you last time, we broke again, don't bring it back. I was like, well, I'm just gonna see if maybe, just in case, maybe somebody different was working today, and y'all could do it, you know, but they couldn't fix it. We've had it repaired multiple times. We've had the mower 10, 12 years, and it cannot be repaired anymore. We usually mow the station at Booth Street. We also mow around the buildings at the fire field, and we borrow a trailer from Public Works to move the mower back and forth. Since we haven't been able to mow, we also mow the Historical Society, and since we haven't been able to mow, Cody has been nice enough to have his guys come over and mow the Historical Society in Booth Street for us. We do have the Forestry Service at the fire field now, and they're at least trying to weed around the building and stuff since they're out there. And then Public Works has always done the back wing for the major part of the field. We just usually mow within 5 to 10 foot of the building so they don't have to get too close with the bigger tractors. So this mower would be so we could take that back on because most departments are short-handed, so that was just something we've always done and tried to maintain our own property. It was discussed by previous administration, like when the new station was built, to add it on to the mowing contract or whatever it is, to maintain stuff like that, but we've mowed our own property up till now, so that's why I put in for a mower.
Okay.
Apparatus repair. So for the apparatus repair, engine 41, which is our oldest pumper, is about 23 going on 24 years old. Has been out of service for approximately 6 months. It was on a call, the motor locked up on it, we had it towed back to the fire station. It's been parked, you can see it parked out back with the cab partially lifted. The 30,000 or 25, whatever it is, was the lowest bid I could get for someone to fix the motor. The issue was, at the time, they had to take the drivetrain loose because we don't know if it affected the transmission or not. But minimum to get the motor running to see if the transmission is any good is 25,000. That 25,000 could be 50,000 if it's the transmission also. We don't know.
So the motor froze up, not the transmission.
I know the motor don't work because the truck don't run. But we don't know if the transmission's locked up too or not, but we couldn't move the truck, so we had to have it towed. So if you want to fix the truck, even though it's almost 25 years old, or if we're going to get another truck, then we can just as is trade in and just walk away from it.
That'd be the best bet.
Because then somebody else can fix it and then we don't have to worry. But I understand the price difference on that is tremendous. So I wanted to at least throw that in there as an option, but also wanted to tell you that that's not going to fix the truck 100%. It's going to be back in service. That's going to fix the truck enough to find out what else is wrong.
To let it limp along, but that's an old truck to move
Yes.
it yourself.
It's a 99.
Yeah. For sure.
Cardiac monitors?
Cardiac monitors. So the cardiac monitors that we currently use, again, just the background, we're the only advanced life support first responder organization in Liberty County. which means whether you have a paramedic on a medic unit or you have a paramedic coming off of the fire truck, we do the same. We just don't transmit. So if we get there before the medic unit does, and you're in cardiac arrest, our guys take off the cardiac monitor, grab our bags with our have medications, start IVs, shock you, all that kind of stuff before the medic unit ever gets there. The cardiac monitors that we currently have are the same cardiac monitors we had on the medic units when we had the City of Cleveland EMS service. Those cardiac monitors, as of 2023, are outlawed for use in the state of Texas because their shelf life is past and they need to move on. I've got an official letter that we have to get out of those monitors, or we can be fined by the state for using them. So this is for two cardiac monitors to replace the ones that we have, because there are a number of times that we run multiple calls at the same time, and we need multiple units. We usually have one on two different apparatus at the same time, so that if one goes one direction, the other one goes the other direction, and cover all the calls. Any questions? Fix the apron, station 41.
And Sean?
Yes, ma'am.
That 90 is reoccurring because wasn't that the plan of like getting it, it will be more expensive if you buy them? Wasn't that the cardiac monitors, or what was? Remember you said there's a plan?
Oh, so yeah, part of the funds for that 90 is a maintenance contract to maintain those units once we purchase them. So there will be a reoccurring after that, but that's part of the 90 to purchase them for the first year. After that, it won't be 90.
Right.
It'll be less after that. So front apron is station 41. The station that we're at currently on East Booth Street is station 41 because it's the old station one got torn down, so that became the primary station. So that's station 41 now. The front apron, which is the concrete area in front of the station, I don't know if y'all have been by lately. There's some cones on one side and a metal plate on the other side because that concrete was poured in 1970 for trucks that are the size of the parade truck that we use, not the trucks that we use today. And there is a sinkhole underneath one of the sides of the apron, about half the distance of a shovel handle. So we have a small apparatus on that side so they can drive around the hole. And then we have a metal plate from Public Works that we've had there for 5 or 6 years now on the other hole. And luckily the center one is still holding up so we can drive the ladder truck out of there. But we have to basically drive around the holes or over the metal plate or it's going to collapse in. So the $30,000 that we have on there is a quote that I received 2 years ago when I first started asking for this, to replace those two sides of the concrete, just to re-pour that front part of the apron to make it safe for those trucks to pull in and out.
So is the apron the driveway itself?
So yeah, we're, like when you first pull out of the building, the concrete you're pulling out of, that's called the front apron. Before you pull into the street, the area out front where they wash the trucks and check them out in the mornings and that kind of stuff, it's called the apron.
What size would that be? Sometimes your concrete, could you cut it and be a width?
So what's there currently?
In other words, you're saying replace it.
Right. We need to jackhammer out what's there because it's about 4 inches and it should be greater than 8.
Well, okay, but you're talking 20 by 30 or 20 by 60 area.
They're 20 by 60.
The whole thing needs to be replaced.
Because the front area where it comes down to where they put box drains in 15 years ago?
Yeah.
About 15 years ago, they did box drains towards the end. That area got replaced. Outside of that box drain area is where the sinkhole is. So it basically has about a 15-foot area between the edge of the building and the sinkhole. So just enough area for the truck to pull out, make a turn, and go around. Last one. Save the best for last. But unfortunately, the one that hurts the most.
And we have promised you one of these for I don't know how long.
Well, I wasn't gonna bring it up. Not too long, not too many months ago, it was promised that we'd get another pumper.
It was promised.
But like I said, engine 41's out of service, has been for 6 months. Engine 42 is almost 20 years old also. So, 20 years is where we should start looking at replacing them. So, we wanted to look at the prices I had at the time that we did our request was $700. Had 2 salesmen from 2 different companies stop by literally about a week ago. That might be a little short. Every year, the cost of trucks are going up on average $35,000 a year.
Believe that.
So,
We're working against ourselves on this.
again, with the growth, additional stations, additional personnel, higher call volume, it's just going to continue.
It is, and we've got to give you some help.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Anderson?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Now, water and sewer. Time is running out, so we can keep moving.
So next is the water and sewer fund, and I'm just gonna go over the year-end actuals and the year-end projected and proposed budget numbers. We have for the year-end actual total revenues at $4,129,894. We have year-end projected for fiscal year 2022 ending at $3,917,391. And then we have, for the proposed budget, we have ending total revenues at $3,906,153. And you do see there's a difference, and that's because we actually received insurance proceed money. 52,000, almost 53,000 we received this year because our tractors got stolen and we had to replace the fans. What was the other item, Robert?
Tractor and lawnmower.
And lawnmower. So that's why you see that difference. And for the expenses on the 2021 year and actual, we have total expenses at $3,495,727, with revenues over expenditures by $634,167. We have fiscal year 2022 year-end projected to end at $3,756,502, with revenues over expenses by $160,889. This is preliminary. We won't know actual numbers until we have our actual end of year audit. For fiscal year 2023 proposed budget, we are projecting to end total expenditures at $3,906,153 with a balanced budget. And I understand that everybody's asking for items, but my job here is to not get us into more debt and, watch the fund balance. And if you see, even though our net position is $13,642,726, that's actually in assets. That's not cash. Cash money is, you see that $2,336,192. That's what we have to work with. So we have in reserve required 25%, and that's the $976,538. And we have excess cash of $1,359,654. That's how much we have in excess cash, which is not a lot. Going on to the next one. I was able to balance the water and sewer budget by giving everybody a 5% cost of living increase, and council approved to observe the medical insurance increase of the 9%. I also did an additional money to the facility maintenance, $14,000, and this was to annual preventative maintenance for the water and wastewater treatment plant generators. We also had additional allocation of funds of $45,000 for the TCEQ required water waste treatment plant renew and discharge permit. This permit has to be renewed every 5 years. And then I have additional CIP needs, which is the $241,000, and this is going to be allocated to the 12-inch water line. Hopefully we don't use it all, because we have $389,000 that we still have left over for the bond money to be used for this project. But this project needs to be done because it needs to improve water pressure in the area and for the new north side school, so it has to be done. And this is just what I just talked about. And here are the water sewer unfunded items, and we're gonna have Robert Meadows and Lindsay Carr talk about the items.
Before you leave, I have a question back on water sewer revenues.
Sure.
For year 2021 ending, we had $4,129,894. With all the new homes and new meters putting in, shouldn't it be going up? Shouldn't we be getting more?
Let me go back to the. I mean, as we have expenses too, so, I mean, we brought in $634,167 revenue over expenditures. So I say we did a good job because we're not under, we're over. Every year we try to be over, and this is why we have to take care of our money so we can have over. Yes, I know that we have a lot of things that need to get funded, and we have a need for it, but we have to, because we don't want to start laying off people at the end of the day. Like, yeah, maybe we can fund it today, but what about in 5 years?
Now, my question is on revenues only.
Yeah,
In year 2021, we had revenues of $4 million. Now, see there's 528 operating revenue that's added to that.
yes, that was, and that's actually grant money that we had for a project to replace the sewer lines throughout the city. So that I believe it's 528. That was grant money that we collected. That's why it's on non-operating revenue.
Anybody else understand what I'm asking? In the year 2023, we're budgeting, I'm thinking we're going to get revenues of $3,906,000. This past year, we got $3,917,000 more. But yet, as we keep adding all these homes and meters, it seems like that would be an increase in our revenue.
Well, if you see, sir, on the operating revenue for 2021 is 3.6, and for the one that I'm proposing is 3.9. So yeah, the revenues did go up.
No, I don't see it. We'll go ahead.
I can.
You see that number? You see that number?
Yeah, and this is the reason why is because we had a $52,000 insurance proceeds. And like I said, this is just preliminary, it's not hard numbers, but I don't wanna over budget stuff and then come in.
Okay, all right.
So I'd rather be conservative.
It's best to have more than.
Yeah, and I don't wanna over budget and say, oh, we're gonna get this much revenue for water, and then come back and tell y'all like, oh, no, so I'm trying to be conservative.
Yes.
What was the 4149 for?
That's the total revenues for fiscal year, for the actual for 2021.
Yeah, the non-operating, 4140, you said the previous 528,050.
That's for grant money that we received for a project,
4149 was grant two?
the 528.
Right, so the 4149,
What are you talking about?
in 2022, year-end projected, the non-operating revenue of 4149,
Yeah,
that's grant as well?
yes.
I'll start by asking for an AMR project. It's for automatic reading. Currently, right now, we do have a tower already that can read the meters. The problem that we have is we don't have the staff to put the meters in the ground. We do have Aquametric, who we buy our meters from, who can do it for us. This would be putting them in the ground and programming them. Just to get them in the ground, we're looking at approximately a cost of $1,289,410. But once they're in the ground, it makes a difference for us. Right now, we have 2 meter readers. Again, same thing, the more we grow, you still have the same amount of meter readers that were reading forever ago, or reading twice as much as they were having to read before. We're having to pull our water crew off water leaks and sewer leaks to come help us read, because if we don't, then your billing cycles get longer. So we need.
And this helps tremendously with billing and everything else.
It does, it makes it more accurate.
More accurate and more,
Correct.
more productive with that, yeah. We've needed that for a while.
With this system, we would be able to look at it every day, every hour of the day, to pull a reading for anybody who called in. They could call and say, hey, my water bill was high. We can go back and see when their leak or when water was used more than anything else. We are looking into a grant for it, but we cannot guarantee that.
Right. I'm sure everybody wants that.
Yeah.
But that's good to try to find one.
Does anybody have questions about it?
That number's just for install?
Just for install, there would be additional costs for purchasing meter boxes to hold the meters and the transmitters, as well as an additional cost to encode to have them merge the systems together. Okay. Do you have any other questions for me? Any other questions?
You did good.
That's it? That's it? Okay. Thank you.
Water plant 2 area, that's the one over Williams, water plant 2?
He's gonna talk about that one next. I was just doing this one.
Okay, well, I don't know who's talking.
Yes, I'm only doing the automatic reading system. He does the other stuff. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay.
So, water plant number 2 reiterated. I'm asking for her, I went back and got the contractor that originally gave the quote, to do the repair, which was, PBS. The original was $513,425, and this project was originally done. Up to the president today, he said if you, with this quote, it's looking to be more like $600,000 to $650,000 now. That's with the aerator and the construction. That would fix that smell there, sir. So that's what we're asking for the aerator for the water plant number 2, and it is at the 907 Business Street, which is over on the south side of town.
I understand, we talked about this, there's 2 ways you can do this. One is aerating it, the other is, yeah, what I was told, but, it seems like you'll see, what, heating it, when it comes out, where it's heated, cooling it. which one are we talking about?
This project will be actually the water being pulled from the well, it's pumped, and instead of going directly into the ground storage tank, it will go through this blower, as it's called, and, it would be more like going through a confined space, controlled space where nothing can get into it, this water goes across these aerators where this air blows and blows that smell that you smell out of that before it goes back into the pipe and goes into the ground storage tank to where it's treated with chlorine. The next option that we looked at was chlorination, and to kill that smell, you're looking at 100 pounds just to get chlorine to kill that smell. And that will bring
So
it
then you smell the chlorine.
then you'll have a very, very strong odor of chlorine in the water system.
Okay, do we know this will work?
For engineering, it's our best option is chlorine.
Well, I know that we drilled,
Yes, sir.
that well's been drilled for a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
It's been sitting because of the smell.
Yes, sir. We do work it. We're not putting it into the system. Right now, what we do is we pump it and we have a hose on our discharge, so where we just pump it to the ditch, just to keep that well fresh. You don't want it stagnant, settling, nothing like that. We keep it water moving. So, because if you let it sit, you gotta bring a white singer or a well company back in, and they gotta do a scrubbing on it, clean it, and that's a pretty pricey.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that item? So the wastewater treatment plant, the plant is in some maintenance needs of some pumps that we have there. They're pushing to be about 15 years old. One of the pumps I'm requesting is a 4-inch double disc sludge pump. What this pump does, it actually pumps the, how can I put this in a nice term? Poop. No, that's waste, whatever you want to call it. Some people don't know that. And it pulls it into a drying bed to where we mix it with a chemical to make it hard like a mud, and it's shipped off waste management. This pump that we have is actually leaking. We have two pumps. This one pump is leaking. It's actually just, we have the catch basin where we catch it and put it back in the system. But that pump is pretty much on its last leg. We've done rebuilt it 3 times already. It's one pump, so this would replace this pump that is leaking. The other one's okay for right now, but it's 12 years old, so it's going to be coming up in a couple of years. It's going to be doing this on this pump. And looking at with that one, we also, I'm still in question about this 3-inch submersible water pump. I want to do a little bit more research onto it, because if it's what I think it's for, which I'm going by my operator, I'm thinking getting their own information. So right now on the table, but what it is the return activated sludge. We call it RES. It's where the sludge that doesn't get pumped into the dry bed, it actually goes back into the system and starts the process all over again. We want to put a screw pump back in, because screw pumps, you can control the flow better than an actual submersible. Submersible works off flow, it goes on and off. Screw pump, no matter how much water's coming in, it's going to pump just one thing. But right now we're looking at 11,605 for that one. But that one right now, I'd rather look a little more into it. I'm going to get a better number for that one. And the scraper blades, this is for the clarifier. This actually separates the sludge from the actual waters where we can separate it. These rakes on the bottom push the sludge kind of into the middle of the plant to where it goes into the return activated sludge. These blades are pretty much, I'm going to say 10 years old if I remember right. They are no more blades. They're pretty much just a real thin piece of metal. They should be about this high, and they're down to just barely pushing the sludge to the middle where we can treat it. So this is something we're going to do in-house, where we're going to pump down that clarifier, replace the scrapers, strap them down and everything else, get back in line and put it back in service.
Is that 2 of them?
Yes, sir, so it's 10,000 per plan, yes, sir, east and west. Any more questions on that item? Lift station maintenance. So we have approximately 18 lift stations. 17 lift stations. We're fixing to acquire 2 more. Pinewood Trails is one of them. That will be going in service as soon as the sewer plant gets operational out at Pinewood Trails. The other one is at Grand Oaks, but it's a little ways away before they ever put that one online because they haven't quite made it back to where that lift station's at. But basically, what we want to do with our lift stations, we want to kind of give it a facelift. Some of these lift stations, the fencing is bad. It's pretty much they need to be basically either re-fenced or we want to replace those boards that go through them, make them a little bit more nicer, clean them up a little bit, do barbed wire, stuff like that. We also want to replace a couple of them, some of our older lift stations, the motors, or the pumps, I'm sorry. Some of those pumps are pretty much wore out. We've done rebuilds on 20 times, and they're just pretty much on the last legs. So we're going to replace those with some actual new ones, get those kind of a little bit more sufficient for pumping and stuff as well. And emergency supplies, basically emergency supplies, what we're talking about is on these pumps they have flappers that keeps them prime. We want to replace some flappers, some seals, bearings, basically what we're calling it as emergency to kind of have those on stock. And also, I'll kind of use this, but emergency supplies also for rentals. Sometimes we need rentals for pumps. If we got a lift station, our lift station down, we might have to bypass it, or one of our mains is collapsed and we have to bypass a block. It's actually contested this past year, our situation. We had to have a pump to do that rental, so that's kind of we're going to do that as well, kind of jump that pricing. Rental prices going up as well. So, any questions on that? Pinewood Trails Wastewater Treatment Plant. This is basically, we just want to buy a little storage building because out there we don't really have a building to put our paperwork, anything like that for that plant alone. We're just looking to buy one of those little buildings that's on skids to put out there just to have our equipment, paper supplies, lab supplies, chemicals, just reporting stuff. That's basically what we're asking for on that one. And I got that quote from Mr. down here off 2025. I'm thinking his name. He has that little bill, but yes, sir. I got my quote from him. So, yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harkins. Yes, sir. And my favorite one for last. A foreman. I'm asking for a foreman, someone that will work underneath me. More and more I'm getting put into meetings to have construction meetings, new development meetings. This pulls me, pretty much takes my time mostly from where I originally was out in the field doing locates and running crews to pretty much anything that's water or sewer related. Everybody calls me. I would like to bring a guy in that's already qualified, certified. I would like to train them, but basically I would like to have them with their license to work underneath me to grow to where when time comes, whenever, we all got to retire, you have someone back behind me that's going to step in and just take off, and you're not going to have any of those moments where you don't have someone that's knowledgeable. So right now, my most experienced guy is probably 5 years. I've been here 22. So, and I have
Do you have anybody in mind for this position?
I have quite a few people out.
Okay, good.
Surrounding areas that
That's good.
I'm looking at, yes, ma'am. So,
Roger, do I understand you with all your experience and knowledge and everything that you're looking to move up?
one day in my life, yes, sir. But as of right now, I would love to just do the superintendent, lead in that direction, development growth. So,
I'll keep that in mind.
yes, sir.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
and it was created to help fund for equipment and vehicles for the water and sewer department. And this is where we've been purchasing like our, tractors. We did budget for a dump truck this year, but due to vehicle shortage, we're not able to purchase it this year, so we're gonna have to do a carryover for next year. But let me go into detail about the income statement. So for fiscal year 2021 year-end actual, total revenues 214,129. Our total expenses were 173,624. So revenues over expenses 40,505. For the fiscal year-end projected, we have total revenues at 218,870. And total expenses of 237,700 with revenues over expenditures by 18,830. For fiscal year 2023 proposed budget, we have total revenues for 221,200 and total expenses at the same with a balanced budget. We end cash balance at 187,801 with a reserve of 55,300 and excess in cash of 132,501. Does anybody have any questions on this? Moving on to the budget highlights. Like I said, the new dump truck was budgeted out this year. Robert's been actually looking for some, but he can't find any.
To answer her question, right now I've got on Chastain Ford and put it in an email to put us on the waiting list for a new truck because from what the commercial fleet guy told me, I've already missed this deadline coming up. I'm gonna give them the next one, and they only put out 300 S750 this year before, is what he told me. So I'm on a waiting list basically.
Yes, and I'm requesting additional 30,000. We had to use some of that money to our dump truck that we currently have. One of them, the motor went out.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, we had budgeted $82,000, but his dump truck went down, and to have the funds we had to use, first the turbo went out, the engine went out, so that was right at the $30,000. So.
Hey,
And then
you're cool.
And then the other one is right now in the shop getting brake replacement. So we actually had to rent out one for the week, so the guys can continue their work.
What is the cost for renting?
$1,300 for the week. But it had to be done. I mean, they needed to do.
The 2006 I have, it's at performance, it needed new brakes on it, it's $3,300.
Yeah.
So I gotta send them an email, give them okay, good, and we'll have that truck back home, Thursday. So we'll have ours. One.
Yeah, we just couldn't go without a dump truck because there was a lot of, and so I just went ahead and approved the money. Okay, so now we also have 36,200 for additional regular maintenance on equipment, like this would be used for the dump truck. So this is why I'm allocating some funds to that. Then 5,000 for additional sweeper attachments. And then we are requesting 30,000 to purchase 2 utility beds for the water sewer trucks. And then replacement of 2 pickup trucks. Do you want to talk about that, Robert?
Sure.
So the $60,000 for a truck replacement replacement, that will be unit 8117. That is my that's my sewer plant operator's truck. The truck has approximately 176,754 miles on it. It's a 2004 model. I look back through all the maintenance, and if I remember right, I think it's about $19,000 we put in maintenance on that truck for the past almost 20 years. So this truck will basically, we'll put this truck into reserve. They were actually in a pilot replacement 2001 truck that's already had an engine put in it, a transmission, and we use it kind of like our fuel truck right now. It's actually being used right now for the parts department for their second crew that he has. So this truck, this new truck will be replacing this unit 817. I'm also asking, instead of having just a standard bed on it, or like a utility bed on the back of it for his equipment, parts and stuff for his lift station, sewer plants, have all his equipment in his truck, not having to go back and forth to plants that have this stuff. Any questions?
Yeah, the outcrop of that, 2 utility beds, that's one of them you're gonna put on this new truck.
The utility bed will be this truck, and then the truck that I drive, that crew cab, I actually want to put a utility bed on that truck as well to go ahead and utilize it for another utility crew, if we can get one.
Describe the utility, just a flat steel plate.
It's basically has the 3 beds on each side. You have you have a long box in the middle over the axle, and you have 2 sideboards, and I'm actually getting one with the top door on top of it to put other tools and parts in. But that truck that I drive, it was bought 2 years ago. Right, I think we try to get another utility crew, and I don't think we got the personnel was bought or approved, so they ended up giving me the truck. That's kind of an overkill for me. We don't need that big of a truck. It's a crew cab. So what it is, if we do that, I will put that truck and I'll just drive one of the older trucks for now until we get a newer truck or something like that. So this will kind of put my truck into fleet to be used for the actual crews. Or if we have one of my utility truck goes down, they have another. That we just hook up with. Any questions on that one? That was both questions, actually. Thank you.
And I was able to fit all of these items in the budget as a balanced budget. So, like I said, this fund is used only for replacing equipment and vehicles for the water and sewer department. Okay, so this is the last fund, and it's hotel motel. And we have, for fiscal year and actual, we ended total revenues at $572,984. And then total expenditures at $492,139 with revenues over expenses of $80,845. That's mainly UC insurance proceeds. That's when the freeze happened, so we got that large amount of money. But it's expense out. And we go to fiscal year 2022 year-end projected total revenues at $262,504. Total expenditures at $568,922, with revenues over expenditures at $306,418. This is due to, if we would expense out that whole $325,000 for that pavilion project, that we know that it's going to be more than $325,000. For proposed 2023 proposed budget, total revenues $263,000, total expenditures at the same with a balanced budget. Ending fund balance at 239,774. Reserve require the 25%, 65,750 with excess in cash of 174,023. If we go to budget highlights, once again, we did the cost of living 5% and the 5% and then the 9%. We observed the 9% for medical insurance. I also added $5,000 for advertising and billboards. I know that a few meetings back, council was asking about the billboards. And it was around almost 13,000, and we budgeted only 10. So this is why I increased 5, because next year is probably gonna be 13, 14. And this is something that we do for our hotel people to promote them. Under the Texas law, local hot revenue can be used only directly to promote tourism and the convention hotel industry. This means the proceeds should be spent on projects or events that result in visitors or attendees staying overnight in the community, generating more hotel occupancy tax. And then I was able to balance the budget with capital programs at $24,859. These funds can be used for the train depot project or other projects that council would like to see, but we don't have enough. As you can tell, we only have $24,859. That is not enough money to do a lot.
Thank you, Leslie.
Does anybody have any questions?
I've got one for you. When you come off the interstate, you see the sign, these are the billboards you're talking about.
Yes.
Right? And it has hotels, let's say service stations, and food, and breakfast.
Yes.
And we're talking about the hotels. Do the other people take their own? Is that?
Like the businesses that want to post on text, like the businesses that want to post on text dot signs out there?
Well, mostly you see it's service stations, hotels, and eating places. We're talking about paying for the hotel out of their money.
Right.
So what other people have to do their own.
Yes, sir, because the hotels gets out of hot funds.
And this is not something we're repairing or adding new. This is just something we rented or paid for every year.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
I just didn't know that.
Yeah, mine, because the RV park on the south end of town, they wanted to do some signs out there, and I got in touch with Tech Stop for them, put them together, and they're working on getting the signs, which they're doing.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
And for next Tuesday, I'll be going over the debt service and the tax rate. And then EDC will be on the 30th. I know Brent has something to do.
I want to talk about, we'll need to talk about the EDC. We may have to move that, because a couple of people will be out of town. So, but we have to talk about that. So that we may move that day of EDC.
The 30th?
To the following, yes. I mean, yes, ma'am, I have to get and see what's going to fit.
Well, I know the 23rd, you said they're not going to be here that week, but what about the following week? The 30th. We decided to move it to the 30th.
Okay.
And I just want council to be thinking about the items that you want to see funded. That way next budget meeting, I can kind of work the numbers and so I can submit the adopted budget.
Okay. Any other questions? So with all the information that we did receive tonight from this workshop, just as Mr. Rose said, just keep in mind and bring possibly finding that you would like done. Okay? I don't think we have nothing for the executive session, but that completes our workshop report? I don't think we have anything.
Nothing?
Okay, with that said,
Need a
get a motion to
Make a motion
adjourn
to
our
adjourn.
workshop.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that completes our workshop.
And we,